How's everyone doing? Woo! All right, so my name is Emily. I am a former organizer at Columbia University's DevFest. I am now a coach at hackathon, or at MLH, so ask me about either of those things. Today I'm going to be talking to you about workshops that work, lessons learned the hard way. Unfortunately, I could not get to the slides for this. It is what I would have said if I was this speaker at our hackathon last year. This is a real email that I got. Obviously, identifying information blurred out, but this was day of our talk, hours before the event. Obviously, an organizer's worst nightmare. This is kind of the inspiration for this talk. All these things that happen that you never anticipate happening, like who in their right mind would do that? But they do happen, and there are some things that you can do to prepare for this. So I'm going to start with, before anything even happens, sourcing speakers, a few things that I've learned from my time as an organizer. One thing is, don't underestimate the value of the people that you know, alumni, professors, personal connections that you have. A lot of these people are great because they have a vetted interest in what you're doing and they want to support you. So you know exactly what you're getting, you have that rapport established. That can be a really great source to tap into. Don't underestimate them just because they're not like CEOs of whatever fancy company. Second thing here that I haven't actually seen at a lot of hackathons is reaching out via LinkedIn to speakers. Now, I will caveat by saying this is a double-edged sword. You kind of have to take this with a grain of salt, but one thing that we did in recent years is we actually put out a form on LinkedIn to invite speakers to apply rather than sending outbound emails to ask people to speak. Again, double-edged sword of having to vet those things that come in, but the pro of that is that you don't have to have people on your team sending out like 20 emails a day asking people to come talk to you. LinkedIn is also a cool place because the people there are interested in doing things like this already. You probably have industry connections through LinkedIn, so that can be a great source to tap into. And then the third thing on sourcing speakers here is just to get creative. Workshops is kind of my general term for a number of things. That can be a talk, that can be a lightning talk like this, a Q&A panel. I have a picture here of a panel on the left that we hosted last year with some speakers just doing the Q&A style. In the middle is sort of like more of a fireside chat where you can see the speakers sitting down with the students, just casually talking. And then I like this picture on the right because this is all of our speakers at the end just hanging out. Really, really nice to be able to establish that kind of like bonding between all the speakers at an event. But the second part of this is to vet the speakers and the content once you have your speakers sourced. So this first point here, I think, is something that I learned definitely the hard way. Someone's self-introduction or bio does not equal their real self, does not equal their content. So what I mean by that is when you're reaching out to speakers or when they're reaching out to you, they're probably going to give like a blurb of some sort to introduce themselves, maybe with some fancy language like you see here, 12 years of experience, yada yada. Take that all with the biggest grain of salt. You don't know these people probably. You don't know, even if it is true, what that means for them as a speaker. And you definitely don't know what they're going to present. They could be the most prestigious person in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything about their content. Second thing here is align incentives, minimize hidden incentives. So what I mean by this is make sure you really understand what the speaker is getting out of their time there, just so that you avoid any conflict, miscommunication down the line. Also, micromanaging. I know all of you as organizers know that this is huge, but as you can see on the emails on the right here, some chains of like 33 emails back and forth with one speaker. I am huge on micromanaging and being annoying. I'd rather be like so annoying and reaching out every day than not getting the information I need. And another point on that is to assign a point person to every speaker. That can be really valuable in establishing a personal connection with them to come back in future years, but also just easier on the communication side. Now, during the actual event or leading up to it, promotion is very, very big. Obviously, everyone's there for the hacking, but you also want to emphasize that the workshops are equally as important. So one way that we like to do this is on social media, doing a sort of like countdown thing where each day you're highlighting things that are going on, putting the spotlight on not just the hacking, but the workshops themselves, and letting people get familiar with what's going on. And to that point, communicating logistics, I think is something that unfortunately gets overlooked so much. Um, a lot of the emphasis gets put on trying to persuade people to go, but if they don't know what they're going to, you've already missed step zero, right? So don't make confusion a hurdle because interest is already, as you know, enough of a hurdle. That can mean things like venue, time, what the talk is about, etc. In the picture here, kind of hard to tell, but that's me kind of explaining the layout of our venue. A lot of students might, even if they're from the place, might not know exactly what room is where. So getting all those nitpicky details down is really, really valuable. And then during the event scheduling, so some minor tips here. One thing is buffer time. So what I mean by this is an example of our schedule, and this is an example of what not to do, back to back to back to back workshops. It can work for busy events, but it can also be very hectic, especially if you have limited venue space or limited organizer capacity. Things are inevitably going to run over on time. You're going to need time to clean up. Organizers are going to be running all over the place. So buffer time is good both for hackers to kind of reset and be able to go to more talks, and for organizers to be able to do that as well. On the timing side of things, I'm sure many of you know this from experience, Sunday morning is nightmare time at a hackathon for both the hackers and the organizers. Rarely a good time for a workshop. And also at the start of a hackathon, people are trying to make teams, trying to establish projects. Also a difficult time to get turnout. And then the third thing here is that although the workshops may be planned by specific people, it should be understood by everyone on the team. I'll wrap up here with a few things on the actual talk itself. So again, on the point of communicating the information around the talk, make things as clear as possible. This is an example of a bunch of our slides that we had up during our event. You can tell that they scroll from event to event, so people knew exactly what was coming up next, where it was with the map here, and what was going on, QR code if applicable, etc. Be over-communicative rather than under-communicative every single day. One note on that, on Discord, this at the bottom is maybe an example of another not to do. 137 at everyone's over a weekend can be a little tough for people to sympathize with, so learn from me there. Another note here is that the speaker can promote themselves. So when you talk about what's coming up next, the speaker's probably really excited about what they're presenting. So have them go up on stage. They'll have like genuine excitement and connect with the hackers. Second thing here is venue choices matter. It may seem minor, but even just stepping outside of the building to the building next door can be really, really difficult for hackers for some reason. Case in point, we had a huge snowstorm during our hackathon. Understandably, no one wanted to go to the talks that were in the building next door. Someone built a snowman. And the final thing I'll say here is hackathons are not a one-time thing. So really, really remember to track feedback and attendance metrics from both the speakers, attendees, and organizers. So that's all I have. There's my information if you want the slides, if you want to ask about any of this. Thank you to Maria, Amanda, everyone for a great example of how to put on workshops that do work. So thank you.